And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who's always wanted to know how to have the perfect vacation. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, now that's an interesting question. How to have the perfect vacation, I'm going to tell you a little later in the show. But boy, it's wonderful to be home here. We're not on Milleronia. Not today, not this time. And there's a reason for that too, which I'm also going to explain a little later. But boy, it's beautiful here. And I'm here in the studio, here at Stately Miller Manor, with Colonel Jeff, of course, and my wife, who's upstairs, and one of our kids who's back visiting us, and, well, two doggies who are in the studio with us here right now, as ever. Boy, feel great. I feel great. Colonel Jeff feels great. It is beautiful here in Southern California, and yes, that music makes me feel tip-top. Of course, that's the Nat Pendleton Orchestra and the Jane Frazee Dancers, featuring boy tenor John Hay, asking the musical question, how come Pros and Cons never won an Oscar? Well, that's awfully nice to hear. Thank you. That's very sweet. I wrote a movie called Pros and Cons, and I was the star of it, too. Pros and Cons. And, well, we had a great time doing it, and, oh, boy. And what a cast, Tommy Davidson, Julie Warner, and Delroy Lindo, David Rashi, Darren McGavin, oh, the great Darren McGavin, Christine Ebersol, boy, she's terrific. Plus, Jerry Seinfeld and Paul Reiser were in it, too. And that was one of those cases where, well, you're making a movie, and if you can't call your friends up and say, hey, want to come down and do a scene, well, what's the point of making the movie? Well, actually, there's a big point to making the movie, but you know what I mean. And so they came down, Jerry and Paul came down, and there was a big prison scene in the dining hall. And but they're great anyway. And as soon as I thought of that, I said to myself, I got to call them later. That's another case of, you don't call your best friends enough. I'll bet it's true for you, too. And we had a blast doing it. And you want to know, John Hay, you want to know why we never won an Oscar? I thought we did. Didn't we, Colonel Jeff? Didn't we win an Oscar? I really thought, did I get to go up there? And maybe not. Maybe I'm losing my mind. But you know what? That's awfully cool, John. Thanks for asking. How come Pros and Cons never won an Oscar? Folks, see it if you want. See if you can. It's funny. It's got a good story. And I got to kiss Julie Warner in the movie. And not outside the movie. That wouldn't count as much. We're both married. But, that's really something. You get to kiss someone in the movie. Who's it going to be? Julie Warner. Wow. She's great. She's a great actress in everything she's done. And she's beautiful. And, sure, I'm, friends with David Rashi, and Tommy Davidson is great. And, Darren McGavin. But kissing them would not have been as good as, okay, Larry, in this scene you're going to kiss, well, Tommy, David, and Darren. Do we have to do that? Didn't I write this movie? I wouldn't have written that. Well, you know what? Thanks for asking, though, John. It means a lot. And by the Larry Miller Store. That's right, the Larry Miller Store. The store that says Larry Miller on it. And that is, by the way, we have an easy way to get there. You can click the link on our website, and that, of course, is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. Ooh, excuse me. I should have had the locks. You know what? It's go to LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. It's a good one, too. I like that one. Colonel Jeff does these really well. Anyway, and what you do is click there on our store link and go to the Larry Miller store. We have great stuff. To be honest with you, we have really good stuff, and I think you're going to want to buy it. We have 3 T-shirt designs, and they're available, as Colonel Jeff wrote down, for gentlemen, ladies, and even doggies. I feel like the Three Stooges there. Hello, gentlemen. Who walked in? Who came in? But they're really good T-shirts. One says, "Keep calm and Larry on." I think that's a great slogan. That's a true one from, well, England in World War II. They took, a lot of bombing and a lot of raids from the Germans. And they put out these T-shirts, "Keep calm and carry on." And I think that's a heck of a slogan. And so is ours, though. "Keep calm and Larry on." And the second T-shirt is called, it says LMDS, which is the Larry Miller Drinking Society. You need to know something about that. I'll bet you already do. And the third one says, "I survived volcano number 2, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt." I think that's pretty good. And we have them for doggies, too. Isn't that something? And it really is. It's cute. I got one for our doggies, and they, I love them anyway, no matter what they're wearing. And normally they don't wear anything because, of course, they're dogs. And they don't quite understand why you have to put them in a top hat and tails. But no, I don't do that. We don't do that. But they have, we have from the Larry Miller store little doggy clothes. So take a look. Do that. Go to our website and click on the store link and go to the Larry Miller store and, get something you're going to really be happy about. And that's the truth. And, we're going to be happy about it too. And that's also the truth. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. Oh, this is a good one. There's a charity in the middle of the city, and they decide they need more money, and it's hard to raise money if you run a charity. And they look on their list, and it's a pretty big one, and everyone who's given to the charity, and they all notice in their meeting there that there's one guy who's never given them anything in the whole city there, but nothing, not once. And he's the richest guy in the world, and he's a big prominent businessman, and he's known to everyone in that city. So one of the guys in the meeting there at the charity says, "You know what? I'll go down. I'm going to go down and see this guy, and I'll buttonhole him, and you'll see. I'll get him to give a bunch of money to us." And they say, "Oh, okay." So he does that. He goes down there. He goes down to this giant building, which may be 1,000,000 stories high, and he goes up to this guy's office. And his secretary says, "All right," and she sends him in there to the guy, to the big deal, big wheel, and says to him, "Well, sir, I'm thank you for seeing me. I did a bunch of research that showed you've never given money to any charity, and I wanted to come down and and talk about us and tell you why you'd feel so good giving money to us." And now the guy suddenly just interrupts and says, the big businessman says to him, "Wait a minute, hold on a second here. You say you've investigated me? You say that you have something that you want me to do? You know nothing about me. Do you understand? Perhaps you don't know this, that my mother recently had 2 operations, and she's very sick. And she needs care in her home there. She needs constant 24-hour care and an army of doctors to go in and out and keep her alive." Well, I'm Sorry, sir, I didn't know that. Well, wait a minute. Perhaps you didn't know also that my brother was killed in a plane crash, and that he had. I'm sorry. Perhaps you didn't. Perhaps you also didn't know that my brother was killed in a plane crash, and he has a wife and 5 children, and they have nothing, no money at all. And his wife is now working at any job she can find, selling apples on a street corner just to keep the children fed. And perhaps you didn't know that. Well, I'm very sorry, sir. No, I didn't. Wait a minute. We're not done yet. Perhaps you also didn't know that my sister's husband was just killed in a terrible car accident, and she and their 7 children are bereft of anything at all in the world. They not only need money, they have nothing. They have no place to live. They have no place to call their own. And the fellow from the charity says, I'm sorry, sir, no, I didn't know. And the businessman just interrupts one more time and says, so, if I don't give money to them, what makes you think I'm going to give it to you? That's a pretty good one. The Colonel and I got a good laugh out of that. Wow, I guess nothing. And I guess when he gets back to the charity, at least they can say to him, well, at least he saw you. He let you in. But that's pretty good, folks. That's the joke of the week. And as always, if you like it, pass it on. Keep it alive and tell it to your friends and loved ones. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. The Poetry Corner. I love that string quartet. And you know what, folks? This is a wonderful poem by the great Emma Lazarus. She was American, of course, and lived from, 1849 to 1887, something like that. And she's, folks, she's one of the greatest we've ever had. And she wrote poems, and she also wrote a novel and 2 plays. But she was very, very popular. She had a correspondence with the great Ralph Waldo Emerson. And this poem, though, is one of the good ones from Emma Lazarus. It's called A June Night. 10 o'clock, the broken moon hangs not yet a half hour high, yellow as a shield of brass in the dewy air of June, poised between the vaulted sky and the ocean's liquid glass. Earth lies in the shadow still, low black bushes, trees, and lawn, night's ambrosial dews absorb, through the foliage creeps a thrill, whispering of yon spectral dawn, and the hidden climbing orb. Higher, higher, gathering light, veiling with a golden gauze all the trembling atmosphere. See, the rayless disk grows white. Hark, the glittering billows pause. Faint, far sounds possess the ear. Elves on such a night as this spin their rings upon the grass. On the beach, the water fay greets her lover with a kiss. Through the air swift spirits pass, laugh, caress, and float away. Shut thy lids, and thou shalt see angel faces wreathed with light, mystic forms long vanished hence. Ah, too fine, too rare they be for the grosser mortal sight, and they foil our waking sense. Yet we feel them floating near, know that we are not alone, though our open eyes behold nothing save the moon's bright sphere in the vacant heavens shone, and the ocean's path of gold. Isn't that lovely? Wow, that's a June night to the great Emma Lazarus. And you do know that name. I hope. She's really wonderful. And she's best known for the poem I'm sure you do know, called The New Colossus, which is a poem, a sonnet she wrote in 1883 that is on a bronze plaque at the base of the Statue of Liberty. We all know that, and we should. She studied well literature in several languages, and you know what? But that, just apart from that great poem, The New Colossus, that is on that plaque, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Boy, is that good enough to be at the base of the Statue of Liberty forever? Well, the answer, by the way, is yes. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. God bless you, Emma, and thank you for writing a June night for us. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, the Magic Movie Moment. Oh boy, this is a good one too, folks. In fact, it's a great one, the Magic Movie Moment. And that's why I mentioned up front Nat Pendleton and Jane Frazee. They're in this great movie, Buck Privates, from 1941, starring Abbott and Costello, Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. And this movie, oh, what a cast, by the way. Lee Bowman, Alan Curtis, and guess what? Shemp Howard. That's right. He was terrific in this. He played the head chef in the Army mess headquarters there. And, oh, if that's not enough, the Andrews sisters were in this too. Sang 4 songs, and they were so good. And by the way, the Andrews sisters worked with Abbott and Costello in 3 of their movies. And some of these songs from Boogie, Buck Privates, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B. It's a terrific scene with that. And I'll Be With You in Apple Blossom Time, which the Colonel and I were talking about. It's such a sweet sentiment. For the time, it's wartime. I'll be with you in apple blossom time when you come home. And by the way, the writers of the songs received, believe this, 2 nominations for the Academy Awards. Now that's pretty great. And I'm telling you, the Andrews sisters, when they sing Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, it's a scene there, and they're in the big headquarters of the, where the soldiers would hang out and get chocolate sodas, and there's a dance scene in there, and they dance the Lindy Hop, these dancers. They were all from California. They danced Up a Storm, and I was just telling the Colonel before, he knows that scene, but I was just saying to him, boy, anytime someone says, well, I'm not crazy about dancing, I don't really like dancing, I'm not crazy about music, I want to say, watch this movie, see this scene. They were so good, these dancers, well, as I said, danced up a storm. The Lindy Hop. And, it's so good. There are so many scenes in this movie, that make Magic Movie Moments. But the one I picked for today is the drill scene of Bud Abbott leading his platoon of soldiers in maneuvers and marching and turns on the base there. Of course, they're training. And, it's good movie stuff, too, because they made Bud suddenly the corporal. He's in the platoon, too, but he gets to lead them. And Lou, obviously, is part of the scene. It's very good and very funny. And it's a great scene. And by the way, it was written in there that what I read today about the movie, that this scene was actually created by editing because they got the idea and they wanted to do it so much. They took a lot of the things that were just already shot in the movie anyway, and they stitched them together and made a scene out of it. And it's a great scene. And it's very funny, and they're drilling, okay? turn left, and rear step, harsh, whatever they do, it's wonderful. That's a little knuckleheaded, sure. And by the way, how knuckleheaded? I didn't know till I read this today that I remember this is World War II. It was shot in 1940 and came out in 1941. Well, something else was going on there. And in this case, the Japanese used this movie to show their troops, to make the point of, well, quote, how incompetent the American army was, unquote. And they showed buck privates to them, which is another one of those, you shake your head and roll your eyes and think, oh, Lord, folks, whatever went on in that war, and all wars are, holy mackerel, especially in World War II with the, the Germans, about it, and the Japanese, there's so much cruelty. But they decided to show buck privates to psych up their soldiers. These guys weren't watching it to laugh, And they didn't laugh. I laugh. Colonel Jeff laughs. You laugh. So you know what? That's the magic movie moment for me, too. That great scene. So much in this movie. It made Abbott and Costello stars. And that's the truth. This was their first movie, and they came out of it and made a lot of money for Universal. It got terrific reviews from all the great papers, the New York Times and Variety, and Abbott and Costello were movie makers then, and they sure did a good job of it. Folks, watch it sometime. Buck Privates, directed by Arthur Lubin, starring Bud Abbott, Lou Costello, Nat Pendleton as their sergeant, Jane Frazee, the sergeant, by the way. Nat Pendleton was also the cop in New York who was trying to arrest them, chase them, because in the beginning of the movie, they were just selling ties out of a suitcase on a street corner. And he chased them, and Abbott and Costello ran into a movie theater to hide, and we'll just see whatever movie's on here. But they didn't know that at that time, in wartime, that the movie theater was used instead as a place to sign up soldiers, as an enlistment center. And so Bud Abbott and Lou Costello signed every paper they were given. They thought they were going to sign up, for a raffle. And so Nat Pendleton, who plays the cop who was chasing them, turns out to be their sergeant, their drill sergeant, as they go to their base. And again, it's just terrific. So please see this movie, folks. You won't be sad you did. It's movies like Buck Privates that give me a good time. Oh, I've seen it. It's one of those, 40, 50 times, and I love it every time. But that's the thing that made me think of, what do you do to have the greatest vacation of your life? And people think about that, to have really good times. I don't know, maybe we go to Alaska or Hawaii or Japan or something like that. And but I think there's something better, and I think it's way better, and I think it's right in front of us. In fact, I don't think it, I know it. And I'll bet you do too, whether you look at it that directly or not. Our younger son is staying with us now. He finished his first year of college, and our older boy I told you about was with us, and he's back on deployment with the other Marines, and they're doing their jobs. And it was great to see him too, and it'll be a while before he finishes that deployment again, and we all get together. But with my younger son here, and it's my same with my older son too, that, what do you do to have a good time? Now, he knows our younger boy is there, and I told Colonel Jeff, and this is part of the reason we're not on Milleronia. He's just having a great time, and he should, because, you finish your first year of college, and he's on the crew team there, and he has to get up at 5 a.m. every day for crew practice. And the point is that he's glad he can sleep in now. I envy sleeping in so much. I don't know about you, but that whole concept, you get to sleep in? and he's finished his classes. He's done very well at school, and he did very well in crew. And he doesn't have to get up anymore. He has a part-time job, and that's great. It's usually at nights or in the later afternoon. And I think that's great. So I love doing this, that before Colonel Jeff came over, but I mean just before that, well, I saw he was up in bed, and I said, with the doggies in him, which is pretty adorable right there, they love him, and they just want to be around him. Well, me too. And I walked in there, and I said, hey, you want some breakfast in bed? And he was up there, and boy, what a life. And I mean that in the best way of, he's in bed, he's not dressed yet, he's covered up, and he's got his laptop open, and he's leaning up against a couple of pillows, and the doggies are cuddled around him. That's pretty good right there, isn't it? And then so he said, sure, thanks. I made him breakfast in bed, and then came downstairs to the studio here, and that was just about 30 seconds before Colonel Jeff got here. But I wouldn't have changed that for anything. Well, wouldn't I have met Colonel Jeff a little better? Well, the doggies met him, and, well, no, I was here the second he got in here. But the point is, I made my son breakfast in bed and gave it to him, and he was happy as a clam. And you know what? Just before this segment of the show, I darted back upstairs to get another bottle of water, cold water. And but before coming back downstairs, I just sort of did a quick walk down the hallway. Just, the quick tiptoe walk to go into my son's room. And he's, God bless him, he's still up in bed there working on the laptop. And so I said, hi, how you doing? Oh, okay, Dad. I said, great. You know what? We're going to be done with the show in a little bit. And then after that, remember, we'll go to the pharmacy. He has a couple of things to get, and so do I. And I said, and plus we'll go to the car wash because he has a car. And it sits out in the driveway there, and it's kind of dirty. And I said, so you know what? We'll wash that up if you want. And okay, sure. And folks, that right there is the greatest day you can ever have. Now, what I mean is that, a couple of days ago, I took him to Goodwill. My wife had loaded up. Oh, boy, I don't know how we all get so many clothes, by the way. We do somehow. I don't know how. I don't know why. And I'll bet you're the same way. And every so often, about every year and a half or so, you got to take a gigantic trunk load over to Goodwill. And that's good because these are good clothes. These aren't things that are torn up with holes in them. And I think, at any rate, but you don't wear them. And they just stuck up in your house. And so I said, come on, to my kid. I said, come on, we'll go to Goodwill and then to Ralph's, the supermarket, and get a bunch of things. And yeah, come on, let's go. Let's be together and go. And I know he doesn't really like to do any of these things, but I do. Not that I love to do the things, but they give me a chance to stare at him and just be next to him, which frankly is the greatest joy in the world for me. So we're in the car, we go to Goodwill, and we each made together 8 walking trips to take out of the trunk in the parking lot next to the Goodwill place. That's a lot of clothes. And we just kept walking back and forth. And the folks are always so nice there. And the ladies said, thank you very much. And by the way, I don't know about you, but when you go to Goodwill, they always say, would you like a receipt for this and that? And you know what? It's one of those days where I just said, no, you know what? No, thank you. Just, we're glad we got to unload all these things. And by the way, that's quite a load. I know you know this too, but it's not as if your house, I said this to him as we were driving around, as we left, I said, you see, the thing is, it's not that the house is going to look different to us when we get back. It's just that we know we just unloaded things we don't need and we don't wear, and they'll give them to people who will. And that's pretty good right there. And he said, yeah, I know what you mean. And then we went to Ralph's and went shopping and got a couple of things for him and a couple of things for the house. And I noticed he had taken his phone out while I was getting, well, some tomatoes in the fruit section. And that's fine. He looked at me as I brought them back, and I was loading some things into the cart in the supermarket. And he said, you're sorry, because he was on the phone there, working, pushing buttons and doing the same thing he does on the laptop. I said, honey, that's all right. It's fine. I mean, this is what you know. This is what you love to do. He said, yeah, plus he's not that thrilled to be in the supermarket with me. And that's okay. That's really part of the big lesson to learn, is that, hey, that's fine with me. He doesn't have to be thrilled to be in the fruit section. And he's not. He's 19, and he wants to just see some of the other electric things. And so we went around the store together and got, a bunch of stuff. And he put the phone away, and I like that better anyway. I always say that, come on, be with me. Let's just be together. And folks, you know what? That is the lesson. And I hope it's not a gigantic one for you, but it really is when you learn it. What you do together doesn't matter. It's that you do them together with each other. That's what matters. He has a delivery job. I mentioned that, and he's going to go there probably later today. And he has old friends from school, from high school he likes to hang out with, and that matters to him, and it should. And when he comes home safely late at night and comes in to say hello and good night, that matters to me. Please learn that lesson. You know what? If you're married and have kids, having a good time together doesn't mean doing something fancy or complicated. It really doesn't. You don't have to find a Ferris wheel or climb rocks or swing on gym ropes out into a lake and drop there and then just... That's fine, but that's not what the best time of your life is. Being together in bed and watching wrestling and making him a sandwich, that's the best vacation I've ever had. And I hope you do too. Remember, that's the motto. Be together, stay together. It doesn't matter if the kid you're with loves the fruit section. Nothing matters. Just do that. Say to him, say to her, say to the child, come on, get in the car. Throw some sneakers on and let's go. And you know what? We'll be together and we'll go somewhere and we'll do some things. And after this, that's why when I filled that bottle, I ran in there and just said, okay, so, we'll go to the pharmacy afterwards and do this, and why should get your car washed and he's a great guy, God bless him. But he said, sure, that sounds good. And you know what? That's what we'll do. It's not fancy and it's not cool, but it's together. And that's fancier and cooler than anything you're ever going to do. I know that, and I'll bet you do too, because we know the same things. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to, and someone there who loves you, especially one of your kids, folks, the game's over and you've won. Don't forget that. Remember, and we'll see you here next time.